friends, and welcome to All the Things TV. I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, and today we're going to tackle full living and goal getting with the grace and gifts God gives. I have with me once again the amazing Ann Watson. Thank you for coming back and joining us for episode number 2.
Oh, well, you're so sweet to let me, glad that you stuck around. So
Yes. Yes, and it's so fun, y'all. If you didn't hear episode 1, make sure you go back and listen to it. Anne has some amazing nuggets and really kind of dove in onto the things that hold women back and even areas that we're being disobedient in. So make sure you check out episode 1. But if you didn't hear that, let me tell you a little bit more about Anne. Ann Watson is a business strategy coach helping ambitious entrepreneurial women get out of their own way and reach their full potential. She's known for problem solving, communicating ideas, and gut level honesty, and will put you on the path to success. And she, through this whole process of getting her scheduled to be on here, she's actually almost my neighbor, literally in real life. We live like streets, 2 neighborhoods away from each other. It's amazing.
it really is.
God has like a super sense of humor. He's so fun. I just love how he strategically just, he's like, oh, here's one. So
well, we're just destined to be friends.
That's right.
After Corona.
Yes, after Corona. For now, we'll Zoom it.
Exactly. Same thing.
Well, thank you so much for coming back. Okay, so I want to dive back into some of the greatness and some of the nuggets and the ways God really uses you. I know that you help women get on a path to success.
Yes.
I know this is a broad question, but what are some keys to a successful path for women?
Do you mean in terms of like achieving their dreams or
Sure.
just, okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm open.
Here's the thing. I think one of the keys for women is taking the time to really understand what it is you want to do. So often I talk to women who felt like they were called to do something and they may have even started it. They jump in with both feet and then they're a little ways into it and they're like, I don't even know what to do next.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always ask them, well, what do you want? And they look at me like, blink like pigeons.
Oh yeah. Not many people ask us that.
Right. So then I'll say, okay, let's look just a few years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't worried about ambition or humility, which
Mm-hmm.
most Christian women are,
Mm-hmm.
and they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you weren't, and you had the dream business, like picture that in your mind. What does it look like? Where are you standing? What are you wearing? How do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And once I ask them that, they kind of start to put together a little bit about where they'd like to go. And then once we get that down, then we can back into the plan and the strategy that they need in order to get there. But I think they need to give themselves permission to really think about not just what's the goal, to change people's lives, but what does that look like for you? What does success look like for you? And then how can we get you there?
That's so good because so often that's where God gives us. He gives us, right? He gives us that vision, the Z.
Yeah.
But you're like the type of person that can help. So like, especially with creatives, I know we both work with creatives. And so they are visionaries and they have all these ideas, but they need the structure and the plan and the B, C, D.
Yes,
D
exactly.
On how to get there, because there is a path and it can be windy. There can be detours, there's crossroads, but there is a path and there are some just simple, practical steps that are needed. And starting with a vision of what that really looks like and what that really takes. Because I think of myself even like, I know I'm supposed to write a book. And so I work with authors and I've worked with authors publishing traditionally. I thought that's what I wanted until I was a part of the process and realized what that really takes. Yeah. And what that really means. Sometimes the ideas are real fun and sound like a good idea. But I think it's so smart to really, not that we get stuck in the weeds, because I think sometimes we can get research-based to where it paralyzes from actually doing it, right? Yeah. But I think we do have to have an idea of what that looks like and what it takes to get there in order to move forward.
Well, sure. But like, if you know what you want to do, you have this vision in your head of where you would like to be. Like, for instance, I have one client who just wants to retire.
Hmm.
She doesn't want to work her tail off. She wants to get her
Wow.
business to a point where she can take time off and travel with her husband.
Yes.
I have another client who wants to, build a multi-million-dollar company.
Hmm.
And so the first thing I think women need to do is give themselves permission to think like that,
Mm-hmm.
to just really consider, what is it that would make me feel like I was successful doing this? But then once you have that, even though the road there isn't going to be easy, it's going to be hard.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mind the hard because you know where you're going, the destination.
Yeah.
Taking a trip to Disney with your kids and everybody's in the car and you get a flat tire, you don't toss the trip to Disney.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good.
You just fix the tire and you keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm talking about, is just really giving yourselves permission, no holds barred. What is the situation that I would like to be in a few years?
So good. That's so good. And we know that we might have the end, we might have the vision, but a lot of the times it looks different. The road getting there looks different.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes we can get stuck thinking, this is not what I thought it was going to be, but that's just a part of it. And it looks different. And God just does things different. He decided to bring Jesus into a manger. Instead of the King of Kings coming in on this white horse, like, it doesn't look like sometimes we think it's going to look like.
Right.
But he always does it, and he always does it well, if we're willing to be obedient and do our part.
Right. And I think sometimes women they start trying to do the thing. And then, like you said, they get kind of in a stuck place. And so they end up staying in that stuck place and either thinking that they just didn't do it well, or they didn't hear God correctly, whatever that is. But really, even when you get to that stuck place, if you have to turn around and go a different direction, that stuck place was still for a reason.
Yes.
So I follow Marie Forleo. She's a businesswoman in New York City, really successful. And she says all the time, clarity comes from action.
Mm.
So it's when you start doing that you start understanding, things start clicking. But if you don't do, you just won't know. So even when you hit those stuck places or those walls, there's purpose in that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that we just continue to do, even if we feel stuck.
Yes, because he redeems the time. He uses all things for good, all the God things. I mean, he really, really does. That's so, so good. So what do you say to women who think that they're underqualified? That they're like, I have this, I'm here and I see here, but I don't see how I am able to go to here. What do you say to those women who are dealing with just maybe it's low self-esteem, and maybe it's just whatever is causing the underqualification, the excuse? What do you say to them?
Sure. So let me give you just a tiny little Jewish history lesson. Back in the time of Jesus, all of the kids would be shipped off to school when they're about kindergarten age. And they would have to learn until a certain age, like, maybe 10 years old. And then all the girls would be sent home. And then only the promising boys would get to move on to, say, the next level of school. And then once they have completed that level of school, only the most promising boys will continue to go on. And like the rest of the boys will get sent home to learn a trade, probably from their father. And this kind of goes on until you kind of get through college. And the end goal at the time was to be selected to be an apprentice to a rabbi, because that was the most prestigious thing you could do at the time. And so what I find so interesting is that when Jesus comes on the scene, Scripture tells us he was a rabbi. And now maybe he was known because he was wearing a piece of clothing or something, but he was a rabbi. Mm-hmm. And he walked right past rabbi school. He could have gone to the best of the best of the best of the best from that school, because they had been weeded out for years. And he could have found disciples that knew stuff.
Yeah, true.
But he
Yep.
went to a pier and he called Peter and Andrew and James and John, who were fishermen. And knowing that they're fishermen tells us that they either flunked out or dropped out of rabbi school. But that was who Jesus wanted. And so I just think that people who think that they haven't had the right education or anything, Jesus wouldn't go to those people. That's not who he wants for what he needs us to do. But just in case you're still hung up on your insecurity or your inability, I will just take you back to the parable of the talents, when the master gives each of the servants a different amount of gold to watch. And he gives like 3 bags to one and 2 bags to the other, 1 bag to the last guy who doesn't do anything with it. We know the story. But scripture says, and I think that's Matthew 25:15, possibly. Don't quote me on that. But it says that the master gave the bags of gold to each man according to his ability. And what that means is you don't necessarily have to know how, but you have the ability to figure it out. Mm-hmm. You have the God-given ability to figure out what you need, to get the resources, to take action, to move forward, and to grow this thing that he has given you. So if you think about, you have the ability to do it, and you don't have to graduate from rabbi school, sister, you had excuses.
Yep. Sounds like it. That's my favorite parable. God keeps bringing that one back and back because, like you said, we look for it. We see the thing we don't have, the education, the supportive husband, the resources. But like you said, he's given us each the ability, and all he asks is that we invest and use that thing, and he'll give us more. So somebody has 5 and they're sitting on it. He's given us 2. We use it. We're already up to 4. And then we use it. We're up to 8. Like, we quickly can surpass anybody who is born with a silver spoon in their mouth if we just use what he's given us.
For sure. And, surpassing that isn't always just like money, like in that parable. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could just be in straight grit.
Yes.
Somebody else may have more than you, but when push comes to shove, they crumble.
Yep.
And you don't.
Yep.
It just, everybody has something different. And I'm just going to point us back to our last conversation that we had, which is all about just really learning to obey the commandment to love yourself. Mm. Because if you love yourself, then you have the ability. It doesn't really matter if you're qualified, and you just are not going to be concerned with what somebody else has. You're just going to be moving forward, doing the thing that you have with the abilities God's given you. And you're not going to just do those things. You're going to love doing it. So it's insecurity, unqualified. Take that excuse someplace else. That's not flying here.
I love it. Well, one more question. Jeremiah 29:11. So that's one of the verses that you shared was one of your favorite. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope.
Yeah.
How does that speak to you?
Well, so I'm late to the whole Christian game, right? I did not start going to church until I was in my mid 30s and fell head over heels in love, but really didn't know how to get my feet wet, didn't know how to dive in. And so we visited a church one time, and as we were leaving the church, we were going down this escalator, and on the wall above it was Jeremiah 29:11. And I just thought, how beautiful is that the plans are for a future and a hope, that plans for good. And I just started thinking about that even when bad things happen, the plan is still for our good. And that just gave me so much hope. And in a lot of ways, it gave me courage. So then I used my ability to figure out how to dive in head first and get to know more about this God that was promising me something kind of exciting and hopeful. So, I mean, it spoke to me in that way, but it spoke to my whole family. And so now we have it framed on a wall in our house. It's our family life verse, we call it.
I love that. I love that. It's one of my favorites too. Being a natural shaper, a natural planner.
Yes.
Like when God speaks my language, I'm like,
right.
He's got a plan. And as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a go-getter, if I know that somebody else has a plan, that helps me be able to take some of that weight off and be like,
100%.
I don't have to come up with all the things. I just have to be obedient to what my part is and let God do his part. Because
and I also love, exactly, he has the plan.
He's got the plan.
And so whenever something doesn't go according to my plan, I'm usually just like, well, whatever, it's not my plan.
That's right.
And I just like, it's on you, God. I mean, if you want this to happen, you need to show up and do it.
Yes.
It's not on me. It's your plan.
Right.
And, I get a little sassy with God, and I think God thinks I'm funny.
But, he does. He told me.
I hope he does.
He told me. He thinks
okay, good. Good.
Thank you. Really
happy to have that confirmation.
Yes. Well, Anne, thank you so much. Thank you once again for coming and just sharing and speaking hope and future to the women that are listening. I so appreciate your heart.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And, I look forward to some more collaborations between us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, friends, that's another episode of All the Things TV. I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, helping you fuel and fulfill your faith journey through the ups and the downs. Now go do all the things that you were created to do with the grace and the gifts he's given you.